Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Sitrep podcast, your forward operations space for all things military and historical wargaming. I am your host, Ariskini Jim, and today we're going to do a build video using some 28mm US infantry support options available from Warlord. Again, this is 28mm by Warlord, so this would primarily be used in games like Bolt Action, but who knows what kind of system that you can use it in. So first we're going to build a US Army Jeep with a 50 caliber heavy machine gun. You can never have too many of those. Then we're going to build an M1919 30 caliber medium machine gun team. This is because they didn't include any M1919s, any 30 calibers in the US infantry box, and I need to put these guys up against my Germans who are armed with all kinds of MG34s. So long story short, take your first shot, I'm going to need some machine gun support. And also the M1919 was just involved in the squads, and I need to go ahead and use them to fill out the order of battle. For some battalion support, I'm going to build an 81mm medium mortar team. These were usually included at the, again, like I said, the battalion level. And then finally, I'm going to build an M3A1 half-track with plenty of machine guns. I think it comes with 3 30 caliber machine guns and a 50 caliber machine gun team. Again, this is so my 28mm American force can face off against my German Deutsches Afrika Korps force, which has armored cars, light vehicles, and all kinds of MG34 and MG42 machine gun support. So, to put it quite simply, I need to bulk up my Americans so they can take on my Germans. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with the Jeep first of all. So it comes in this blister pack, which my clumsy fingers have a little bit of issue getting open, but there we go. Alright, let's see what comes in the kit. We start off with the main body of the Jeep, very nicely produced in resin. Not very much cleaning is going to be required on this. A little bit, as you normally see with a resin kit, but not very much. Alright, let's open up the baggie and see what components we get. Looks like we start off with 4 wheels, pretty self-explanatory. The spare tire comes attached to the resin main body of the Jeep. There's the operator of the 50 cal, there's the driver. We have 2 axles for the wheels, a gear shift and a clutch for the driver to operate, the windshield for the Jeep, and the 50 caliber pre-attached to the pencil mount, which is a nice little touch there. Okay, so here are our parts all laid out. Let's go ahead and get started with cleaning. Start off with a knife with a big thick handle because safety first. And here I go trying to cut some of the flash off the Jeep. Of course, we got to be careful that we don't cut off the wrong things, but it's not too hard. It's pretty easy to tell, what actually belongs on the Jeep and what doesn't. So I won't bore you guys with the whole process, but you guys know how to clean up a resin miniature. So I'm just going to take a couple of minutes here to get this resin miniature ready for all the components. Okay, so now our body of the Jeep has been cleaned, along with our axles and our 4 wheels, or at least as much as I can dig out of the tire treads. Alright, so let's go ahead and start putting some of this together. We're going to start off with our 2 axles here, and these actually fit into the model pretty well, as I'm about to show. What you got to look out for is, I'm not sure if that's a gearbox, but it's that little bulge in the axle that fits in this gap right here. It's clearly marked, so as I'm about to show, it fits in there nice and snug, just like that. Almost perfectly. In fact, it does fit in there perfectly, even without any glue. And the other one kind of does the same thing on the back. Again, you're looking for that little notch in the bulge in the axle there. And again, it fits into that gap. And just like the front axle, it fits on the back. I'm pretty sure they're both the same, but I don't think there's a difference between the front and the back, so you can't really put them in there backwards. And once you've got the axles in there, you want to fit those studs into the well on the back of the wheels, and that is how that part of the Jeep is going to go together. Nice and simple. Alright, so let's go ahead and do at least some of this on camera. I'm going to go ahead and crack a new bottle of my favorite kind of gel super glue. Reasonable men may disagree, but I really like this kind of glue because it comes out already in sort of a gel form, so it comes out kind of pre-activated. You don't need any kind of a glue activator or anything like that. A little bit of glue in where the axle's going to go. With this kind of glue, you definitely don't want to use too much. Oh, come on, man, get it in there right. I'm trying to work around my camera here, folks, so this is turning out to be a little difficult. But there you go, the first piece fits in there nice and snug. It's already sticking in there in place, perfect fit. And yeah, there's the first axle. Let's go ahead and do the second axle. It's pretty much the same as the first one. You can't really mix it up or do it backwards because of the way the model is constructed. And there they are. Both axles are in. They're a little crooked, but that's okay. It's soft metal. It'll bend. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and try to fit some wheels in here. Now here is where a lot of people have issues. The model fits together fine enough. The well has plenty of room for the stud on the axle, so you don't have a problem there. Whenever I'm trying to put the wheel on, I try to put any extra flash on the bottom of the wheel as the model sits on the table so it won't show as much. But sometimes people have a hard time getting it to stick. But here we get lucky, and the first tire is now attached. Alrighty, here is our Jeep with all 4 wheels attached. I tell you what, we're going to let this puppy dry good and long, because obviously the wheels are the load-bearing part of the miniature, and they're only held on to the axles on those little join points, which are well made, but you just want to make sure that the glue has plenty of time to dry on this. We also want to make sure that it has that nice 4-point contact and the miniature is well balanced. It's not wobbling around on the table. So far, we're good to go on that. So next we're going to work a little bit on the windshield, followed by the 50 caliber machine gun with the pencil mount. There is the gunner for the 50 cal. There's the driver with the steering wheel pre-attached to him. And again, here are the gear shifts that I mentioned before. Looks like one is the gear shift and one is the clutch. And one thing I forgot to mention before is that little towing eye that goes onto the back of the model. We're going to put that on probably at the very end of the process. Alright, so let's get started on this windshield. So just a matter of cutting off the flash, very basic stuff. We're going to clean the model a little bit to make sure that there's no flash along the inside of where the windshield's going to go, and then affix it to the model. Okay, this is totally up to you guys, but what I'm probably going to do later on, when the Jeep is not only assembled but completely painted, is come back here and put some clear plastic into this frame to show the windshield. But of course that's not part of the kit, so I'm not going to go into that part of the process for now. At the moment I'm just going to finish cleaning this, put on a little bit of my gel glue, being careful as always of course not to use too much, and affix this windshield frame to the main body of the Jeep. These do go back on a slight angle on many Jeeps. Sometimes it's straight up and down. It's really up to you. But for now, there we go. The windshield is attached. Okay, I was about to start working on the machine gun operator and the machine gun, but then I realized that if I put that stuff in there first, I was going to have one hell of a time getting deeper into the cab of the Jeep and accessing, for instance, those 2 little wells where the gear shifts go, much less the driver. So long story short, take your second shot. I would definitely recommend that you put in those gear shifts first and the driver before you start messing around with the machine gun operator or the 50 caliber itself. Alright, look, I apologize guys, but there was just no way between heaven and hell I was going to even try to get those gear shifts in there on camera. Suffice it to say that once you clean those gear shifts off of the sprue, they fit into those wells nice and clean. It's just kind of tough to reach in there, especially with my big fat fingers, and get them in there to where they sort of rest and are glued into approximately the right angles. Because you want it to look like a gear shift, and I think that's the clutch. So it's going to be coming up at a little bit of an angle. I believe the shorter handle is closer to the driver, at least that makes sense. That way he doesn't have to reach past the longer gear shift to get to the shorter one. And yeah, that is now put together and ready to go. Alright, now we're ready to start messing around with the driver. So, the driver is nice and simple, especially since he comes with the steering wheel and the steering wheel column already attached. The only tough part is getting his boots past the dashboard, but once you do that, you just have to wiggle him in there a little bit. He fits in there just fine, as you can see. So obviously, I'm going to go ahead and clean this figure a little bit first, make sure I get rid of that little bit of a mold line there along the top of the helmet, clean up his shoulders a little bit, and then, yeah, he'll be glued in place and ready to go. Now comes the fun part, when we get to put this machine gunner and his weapon together and put the whole assembly into the Jeep pretty much at once because of the way the joint points are set up. So first of all, clearly we have to attach the machine gunner's shoulder to the machine gunner. Notice his right arm is pre-attached to the weapon. And clearly the machine gunner's boots are going to be standing on that little step that you see there at the back of the Jeep's cab. So, God help me, I'm actually going to try this on camera. I must be crazy. But, hey, you guys are a nice, kind, and forgiving audience, so please just take it easy in the comments. I'm sure I'm going to goof this up at least once. So I've got the shoulder, I've got the 2 boots, and I've got the pintle mount. That's 4 joint points all at once that I kind of have to do. Actually, make that 5 joint points. I have to get the machine gunner's other hand onto his butterfly triggers on the back of the Mauldus there. So let me go ahead and get that all in there. Alright, so I've got the first 2 joint points in there. That's going to be the machine gunner's shoulder and his hand. And now the other 3 are going to fit into the Jeep. One thing to be careful here is make sure that you don't bash into your gear shifts as you fit the pencil mount into the cab of the Jeep. Okay, against the odds, I think I actually got that right on the first try. Now, I might make some adjustments once the glue dries, make sure that my alignment and my elevation are correct, but for now, I think it's okay. And that's pretty much going to wrap us up for the Jeep. Oh, I take that back. I did go ahead and put that towing eye there on the back of the Jeep. You can see it there right next to the spare tire. That was the last part of the kit to assemble. And with that, yeah, this thing is pretty much ready for priming. So I'm going to go ahead and prime it black and then start the paint job. And then when that's all done, again, I'll probably come back and put some clear plastic in the frame of that windshield to, you know, show what the to show where the windshield is. But that pretty much wraps us up for the Jeep, which means we're going to go forward now with our next piece on our American support kit here and work on our M1919 30 caliber medium machine gun team. So first I'm going to go ahead and try to get it out of the blister pack, which is always a lot of fun, of course, especially with my clumsy fingers. Okay, there it goes. Looks like we get a base for our machine gun team. Emptying out the rest of the case. Thank you very much, Christina, for packaging our product for us. And let's take a look at our components. So first we get the machine gun itself. There's the machine gun and the tripod upon which it rests. There's our actual machine gunner. His head will be attached separately. We have our assistant gunner that's feeding in the belt of ammunition, and then either an ammunition loader or a team NCO, however you want to paint it, and that's the kit. Alright, so this wasn't terribly complicated to put together. The 3 guys are basically just the 3 guys. There's just a few things to kind of look out for here. Alright, first the machine gunner himself had his head in there separate in a little ball and socket joint that you had to put in there just to make sure that his head is aligned once he's loaded up with the weapon. And the other thing to look out for, once I get my thumb out of the way, is you want to put the center point of the machine gun, the center pintle, on the center of the tripod so that the back pintle fits and rests on that crossbar that sits between the 2 back legs of the tripod, like so. Another thing that you really want to keep an eye on is to make sure that your assistant machine gunner or your ammunition loader, whatever you want to call him, that he is loading his tray from the left-hand side of the weapon. The kit does give you the suggestion of an ammo tray on the left-hand side of the receiver, so you can tell which way you're going. As far as the 3rd man in the crew goes, some of the instructions I was able to find online have him on his own base, but the kit did not come with a base, so I went ahead and squeezed him on this base with the other 2 men of the crew. At least this way I've got all 3 figures represented, they're all together on the same base, and they're ready to go. And that's pretty much what it's supposed to look like. It's a very simple kit, guys. A base, 3 men, a 2-part weapon, and there it is all put together along with our Jeep, which means that in our little Oriskany Special U.S. Infantry support team, the next thing to do is our battalion mortar team. So let's go ahead and get it out of the case, which I don't know why I have such a hard time with these. But there we go. Again, we have our base, and then, hey, thanks very much, Becky, for packaging our product for us. And now let's see what components come in our kit. So here we go. Looks like another 3-man team. Very simple there. And then the mortar itself comes together in a couple of pieces. Looks like he's a little tired there. He's taking his helmet off. Don't let the Sergeant Major see you do that. We have an ammunition bearer bringing up a fresh case of 81mm mortar shells. And then the actual mortar gunner himself. And yeah, here are going to be, it's going to be 3 parts for the mortar. So we got the tripod, we got the base plate, and we've got the mortar tube itself. So that's kind of the same 3 parts that these kind of mortars come in real life. Usually these are broken down and carried by different members of the squad. But yeah, you're pretty much looking at a tripod, a base plate, and a mortar tube. Okay, long story short, take your third shot. This mortar crew was a lot tougher than I thought. It was deceptively tough to put together. Now, none of the guys posed any kind of a problem. None of their heads had to be attached, none of their arms or legs. You literally just glued them onto the base and you were done with it. The one exception is the gunner, and that's because you can see where his hand has to be in contact with that little control wheel that is part of the tripod assembly for the mortar. So that was actually a lot tougher than it sounds, because the mortar, like I said, is in 3 parts. And just to put the mortar on the base plate and to get it at close to the right angle, that's 5 join points. You have to join the base to the base plate. Then you have to attach the tube to the base plate. Then you have to attach the tripod to the tube, and then the tripod itself attaches to the base of the miniature at 2 points. That's 5 total join points. And then the 6th join point is, again, the gunner's hand there that fixes to the control wheel on the tripod. One more thing to keep an eye on is that small crossbar there in the tripod is facing to the left-hand side of the weapon toward the gunner. That just makes sure that your tripod is facing the right way. That's not that big of a deal. But to get that whole mortar put together was actually kind of tough, because you want the mortar to sort of be at the right angle, and you also want an approximately correct amount of mortar tube extending past where the tripod joins the mortar tube. So I got it. It took a couple tries. You can see some extra glue kind of splashed on the base there. That's going to get covered up by the primer. I'm not worried about that. But yeah, that pretty much is going to finish up our build there of our 81mm mortar team. And that completes all the support options I wanted to put into my pre-existing U.S. infantry platoon. We've got an 81mm mortar team, we've got a 30 caliber machine gun team, we've got a Jeep with a 50 caliber machine gun team. That's all good to go. And in part 2 of this video, we're going to go ahead and put together this M3 half-track. So please keep an eye out for that. But for now, this is Risking Jim with the Sitrep podcast. We are rounds complete for another episode. And as always, Tango Mike for watching.